September 26, 1983. One man received a nuclear launch warning. Protocol said fire back immediately. He did nothing. You're alive because of it. The man who saved every person alive today by breaking the rules. It's just past midnight. September 26, 1983. A bunker outside Moscow called Serpukhov 15. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov is 44 years old. He's been on duty for less than an hour. This is not supposed to be his shift. The regular officer is sick. Petrov is filling in, and in approximately 10 minutes, he's going to receive an alarm that will force him to make a decision that determines whether human civilization continues to exist. Before we go any further, if you want more stories about the moments that changed history, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The decisions one person makes can save the world, or end it. Let's see how close we came. The Cold War is at its most dangerous point since the Cuban Missile Crisis. 3 weeks ago, the Soviet Union shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007, killing 269 people, including a U.S. congressman. Tensions between the superpowers are approaching nuclear threshold. The United States has 70,000 nuclear warheads. The Soviet Union has 45,000, enough to destroy every major city on Earth multiple times over. Both sides are operating under a doctrine called mutually assured destruction. If one side launches, the other launches immediately. Total annihilation is the only deterrent, and Stanislav Petrov is sitting at the console that receives the first warning. The system. Petrov is not a field commander. He's a systems analyst, a software engineer who helped design the early warning satellite system called OCO. His job tonight is to monitor the system and report any launch detection to Soviet High Command. The system works like this. Soviet satellites orbit over the United States, monitoring for heat signatures. If American ICBMs launch, the infrared sensors detect the rocket exhaust plumes within seconds. The satellite SHAT transmits the data to Serpukhov 15. The computer analyzes it. If it determines a launch is real, the alarm sounds. At that point, the officer on duty has one job: report it up the chain of command, immediately. Because the Soviet Union has approximately 20 minutes to respond before American warheads reach Soviet soil. The protocol is clear. If the system says launch, you report launch, you don't question it, you don't hesitate, you don't investigate, you report, and Soviet leadership decides whether to fire back. Except tonight, Stanislav Petrov is about to break that protocol. The alarm. 12:14 a.m. The alarm sounds. Red lights flash across the command center. On Petrov's screen, the word appears in Russian: launch. One American ICBM detected, heading toward the Soviet Union. Petrov's hands are on the phone. One call to high command and the Soviet response protocol activates. His training says make the call. The system says make the call. Every procedure he's ever learned says make the call. He doesn't. Because something doesn't make sense. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, hit the like button. It helps this reach more people. And trust me, what happens next is even more intense. Here's what doesn't make sense to Petrov. If the United States is going to launch a first-strike nuclear attack on the Soviet Union, they're not going to send one missile. They're going to send everything. Hundreds of missiles. A decapitation strike designed to destroy Soviet command infrastructure before they can respond. One missile makes no strategic sense, but the system is very clear. Launch detected. Protocol says report it. Petrov is staring at the screen. His staff is looking at him, waiting for him to pick up the phone, and then the alarm sounds again. 2 more missiles detected, then another, then another. Now the screen shows 5 American ICBMs inbound. Petrov has less than 10 minutes to decide what's real. The decision. 5 missiles. The computer is certain. The satellites are transmitting confirmed heat signatures. Every system is showing launch. But Petrov is doing something no one else in that room is doing. He's thinking. 5 missiles is still not enough for a first strike. If the United States is launching, they're launching everything. Petrov knows this. He helped design the early warning system. He knows its capabilities, and he knows its limitations. The OCO satellites are new. They've had false alarms before, sunlight reflecting off clouds, atmospheric anomalies. The system is sophisticated, but it's not perfect. Petrov is running the calculation in his head. What's more likely? That the United States has decided to launch a limited nuclear strike that makes no strategic sense, or that the satellite system is malfunctioning? By the way, we're halfway through this story, and if you're still not subscribed, you're missing stories like this every single week. Hit subscribe now. You won't regret it. The phone is in Petrov's hand. Soviet High Command is waiting, and he makes the decision. He reports it as a system malfunction, not a launch, a false alarm. He's breaking protocol, he's contradicting the computer, he's putting his career, possibly his life, on the line. Because if he's wrong, if those 5 missiles are real, the Soviet Union will have no time to respond. Millions of Soviet citizens will die, and it will be his fault. But he trusts his analysis more than he trusts the machine, and he waits. The 23 minutes. 23 minutes. That's how long it takes for an American ICBM to travel from a launch site in the United States to a target in the Soviet Union. Petrov has just told Soviet High Command that the launch warning is false. He's told them not to respond, and now he's waiting to see if he's right. If he's wrong, nuclear warheads will start detonating over Moscow, Leningrad, and every major Soviet city in approximately 20 minutes. The Soviet Union will be destroyed, and there will be no time to retaliate. If he's right, nothing happens. The alarm was false, the system malfunctioned, and life continues. The room is silent. Everyone is watching the clock, watching the screens, waiting. Petrov is chain-smoking, his hands are shaking, he's running through the analysis again and again in his head. 5 missiles, not a full strike, it doesn't make sense. But what if he's wrong? What if this is some new American strategy? What if they're testing Soviet response time? 10 minutes pass. 15, 20, 23 minutes. Nothing. No detonations, no impacts. The satellites show no further launches. Ground radar shows nothing approaching Soviet airspace. It was a false alarm. Petrov was right, and he just saved the world. What would have happened? Let's be very clear about what Petrov prevented. If he had followed protocol and reported the launch as real, Soviet High Command would have had approximately 5 minutes to decide how to respond. 5 minutes to determine whether to launch a full-scale nuclear counterattack. And everything we know about Soviet Cold War doctrine tells us they would have launched. Because mutually assured destruction only works if both sides believe the other will actually fire. If the United States is launching, the Soviet Union launches immediately. That's the doctrine. That's the deterrent. Within 30 minutes, thousands of Soviet nuclear warheads would have been in the air, targeting American cities, military bases, and command centers. The United States would have detected the launch and responded with their full arsenal. If you're still with me, do me a favor and hit the like button. It takes 1 second and it helps more people discover these stories. Within 2 hours, every major city in the Northern Hemisphere would have been destroyed. New York, Washington, Moscow, London, Paris, Beijing, gone. The immediate death toll would have been in the hundreds of millions. The subsequent nuclear winter would have killed billions more through starvation and environmental collapse. Human civilization as we know it would have ended because of a false alarm, because of a computer error, because satellites misread sunlight reflecting off clouds as missile exhaust. One man's decision not to follow protocol prevented all of that, and for that decision, Stanislav Petrov was punished. The punishment. Petrov's superiors were not grateful. They were furious. He had broken protocol. He had contradicted the computer. He had made a decision that was not his to make. According to Soviet military doctrine, he should have reported the alarm immediately and let High Command decide. Petrov was not court-martialed, but his career was destroyed. He was reassigned, demoted in all but name, denied promotions. His reputation within the Soviet military was ruined. The incident itself was classified. For years, even Petrov's family didn't know what had happened that night. The Soviet government didn't want to admit that their early warning system had malfunctioned so catastrophically. They didn't want to acknowledge how close they'd come to accidental nuclear war, so they buried it, and they buried Petrov along with it. He retired early in 1984. He suffered a nervous breakdown. He lived in a small apartment on a pension. He never received recognition from the Soviet government or the Russian government that succeeded it. For 10 years, almost no one outside of Soviet military intelligence knew what Stanislav Petrov had done. The revelation. It wasn't until 1998 that the story became public. A retired Russian general mentioned the incident in a book. Journalists investigated, and slowly the full story of September 26, 1983 came to light. Petrov was invited to the United Nations. He received awards from international organizations. He was called the man who saved the world. Documentary filmmakers interviewed him. He He traveled to the United States and met with American officials who thanked him for his decision, but none of it changed his circumstances. He still lived on a small pension in Russia. He still suffered from the trauma of that night. He still carried the weight of knowing how close humanity had come to extinction. In interviews, Petrov was modest, almost dismissive. "I was just doing my job," he would say. "I was just following my training to assess the situation." But that's not what he did. His training said, report the launch. Protocol said, report the launch. The computer said, report the launch. He did the opposite. He trusted his analysis over the machine. He risked everything on his judgment. And he was right. The death in obscurity. Stanislav Petrov died on May 19, 2017. He was 77 years old. He died in his apartment outside Moscow, alone. His death went unnoticed for months. It wasn't until September 2017 that the world learned he had died 4 months earlier. No state funeral, no official recognition from the Russian government, just a quiet death of a retired officer living on a pension. When the news broke, tributes poured in from around the world: the United Nations, peace organizations, scientists, historians. Everyone recognized what had been lost. The man who had literally saved billions of lives died in obscurity. The man who had prevented World War III received no recognition from his own government. He spent the last years of his life giving interviews, telling his story, hoping that people would understand how close we came, how fragile peace is, how one decision, one moment, one person can determine the fate of the entire world. And yet most people have never heard his name. September 26, 1983. Stanislav Petrov was in the wrong place at the right time, filling in for a sick colleague, sitting at a console, monitoring a system he helped design. And when that system told him the world was ending, he said, "I don't believe you." He broke the rules. He contradicted the machine. He trusted his judgment over protocol. And every person alive today exists because he did. The next time someone tells you that one person can't change the world, remember Stanislav Petrov. One decision, 23 minutes, 7 billion lives saved. That's the legacy, not the medals, not the recognition, the fact that we're here to tell the story. If this story affected you, subscribe to the channel. We cover moments in history where one decision changed everything. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And here's my question for you. Would you have made the same call Petrov did? Trust the computer and report the launch, or trust your gut and risk being wrong? Would you have trusted your analysis over the computer, or would you have followed protocol and reported the launch? It's an impossible decision, but Petrov had to make it in real time with the fate of humanity on the line. Drop your answer in the comments below. What would you have done? I read every single comment, and the best response gets pinned to the top. Thanks for watching. And remember, you're only here because one man refused to follow orders.